morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with Jim and James. James, I know you're going to bring in our guests in a second, but when we met these folks recently at SGA and such, and all of a sudden we started to geek out about composites and things, which I'm kind of a little geek about myself. I was excited for this episode. But before we bring a guest in, James, how are you today?
I'm well. We are getting some things done today, and I'm excited to have Tommy on with us. You're right. We've ran across the Alan Edwards folks several times here lately. Got to spend some quality time with several of them, and so when we looked at the schedule today and saw Tommy on there, it was like, hey man, let's do it. So,
all right,
Tommy, good morning, man. How are you?
Good, doing great. How about you guys?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
How's the weather in Lake Charles?
Actually, it's been dry. We've missed the tail end of the rain on the last few fronts, and pretty odd time. Usually we're pretty wet this time of year, but it's pretty dry, and it's getting 90 degrees, so summer is here.
And it was almost 100 degrees in Texas yesterday. So I feel you.
It was 91 yesterday in West Palm Beach, which is warm for us. Well, that's summer weather.
Yeah.
So,
man, this isn't a weather podcast, I swear. But, when you reach a certain age, these things are important.
That's right.
That's what we do. Okay, let's get on track, James. I think that was the cue to get on track. Tommy, you've been in the industry for a few years.
Yes,
I think you've been with Alan Edwards for a good 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of know what Alan Edwards does. Can you give a flyover to the audience and let them know what your values are in the marketplace?
Sure. Alan Edwards, started many years ago, primarily back then in the buoyancy industry, putting concrete coating on pipes to hold them down in wet conditions and set on weights, and now into the bag weights today. And then, of course, we've just kind of gotten innovated over the years, and now we handle a composite, and we have a new heat induction compression sleeve, and so some new things going on with us.
Well, let's go a little bit deeper into that, because pipeline integrity is a really important subject. I mean, it's been going on for decades and decades and decades, as we all know, but really over the last 20 years, with a lot of the regulations and rules and such like that, pipeline integrity and pipeline integrity testing has come about. Give us a little insight as to Alan Edwards and some of the roles you play in integrity.
Sure. Well, right after the buoyancy, then the steel sleeves came along, and that was sometime like in the mid 50s. And of course, we've got a new facility. I think it's about 3 years old there in Tulsa. Got a new fab shop to build the sleeves, and got into some aggressive testing programs with sleeves. It's something that's fairly new to the industry. Not much testing has been done on steel sleeve industry, so that's been real exciting. Of course, our new facility is just great. CNC equipment, and it's really a nice place up in Tulsa.
I'm
gonna have to slide up there. I'm
yeah,
in Tulsa.
You need to.
I'm in Tulsa a lot. I'm on the Oklahoma Gas Association board.
Yes.
So we meet about once a month, but we're getting back in.
I could hook you up with a good tour there. That's
man,
for sure.
I would love to do that. Sign me up. I'm sending the email now.
Well, let me hit on this a little bit, Tommy. I'm going to bring it on a path, because these steel sleeves, again, if a pipeline has been gouged or maybe whatever, corrosion, whatever the case may be, you can put a sleeve around it to keep the pipeline in place so it keeps flowing and, in essence, repair it. But I also know you guys do a lot with composites, you said, too.
Yes.
Has that really grown a lot for you folks recently? What's that been like?
It has. And of course, I spent 14 years in the composite industry before Alan Edwards. So I got some history there as well. But yes, we have a e-glass system and a carbon system, and it's fairly new to the market, but we're getting there. We're getting some customers, and of course, with 75 years in business, service has been a huge part of Alan Edwards' success and innovation. We really put our customers first. I know sometimes that sounds like a sales cliche, but it's really true. I think we do a good job of listening to the needs of what the customers need. And actually, that's kind of how some of these new products came about, was listening to the customer's needs.
So what is that? I know, because I've been around you guys here lately enough, but tell me, what's the product, the new product that you guys are out there talking about?
Well, the newest is Omega Wrap, and it's again it's a composite that we have an e-glass system and a carbon system, and then the heat induction sleeve is really a neat process as well too. Just basically, it's a heat inducted sleeve that once you put it on the pipe, we induce heat to it to get the sleeve to grow, and kind of locks down on that pipe once it cools off, and most of it is for crack-like defects on piping. I think some of our vision, James, was to be able to, we've been in the steel sleeve business for years, now composite, and then now with the compression sleeve, kind of gives a good resource, some good resources versus a cutout. So we wanted to be able to offer some different ways to be able to fix your anomalies on pipelines.
And can I just jump in here for a second? So
Sure.
Tommy mentioned a few things. And for our audience that's in the industry, he mentioned cutout as well as sleeves. And what that means to people that may not be in the industry is that when there's a defect or a problem with a pipe, one way of fixing it is to shut off the valve, cut the pipe, and in essence, nothing goes through it, put a new piece of pipe in, weld it, and get it back up and running. The problem, though, in that case is downstream,
Yes.
down the pipe. If you cut that pipe and there's no way to reroute it, the people downstream, whether it be a town or a city or an industrial complex, whatever, it does not have natural gas.
That's it. And it obviously gets not only just very expensive for the pipeline company for the shutdown time and in the process of fixing it and those expenses, but like you said, there's somebody on the other end not getting product.
Right.
So I'm going to be the guy here, okay? Because I don't know these things as well as you two. So hopefully there's somebody else out there like me that's begging the same questions. So you talk about the ease of doing, instead of doing a pipe repair, replacement, or cutout in that situation. Is it still, so that's great. But is it still awesome just in normal situations? Because it's still going to be a durable solution. It's still, a composite, it's still sleeve, it's not just in that situation that it can be used all the time, or is it something that's specific to in lieu of a cutout?
Yeah,
I guess is my question.
And that's exactly what it is. They'll run smart tools down the line, find deficiencies and defects in the pipeline. And, even in that stage, that's why service is so important, because a lot of times, depending on how many anomalies are in the pipeline, they'll have to derate the pipe until they can get those situations fixed. So your loss of production can even start from when they start reading the pig. So, if it takes a week, takes 2 weeks to get your repairs done, they've already most of the time reduced pressure, which reduces production. So that's why the service and having a effective solution is as quick as you can, because they want to get those pressures back up and get their volumes back up to the customer to the end of the line.
That's why you need an expert on it.
Well, we try.
That would be Tommy. Does that make sense, so James, this whole world? I mean, it really goes back
Well,
to
it's funny because
reliability.
for me, I'm piecing it all together, right? So like when you're saying that, and that's a disruption of service, I'm like, oh, that's where, an LNG truck or someone could, pull in and do a virtual pipeline or, whatever it might be. Right. So in my head, that's why I ask some of the questions I do. I've only been here 6 years, but as I'm piecing it together, this makes a lot of sense for me. And then I see other solutions like the ESG stuff out there where they're recapturing as, you're doing that cutout or something. So, part of me is trying to piece the big picture together.
Let me jump in. I appreciate y'all's patience. I don't. James hit on a couple of things. Tommy, and please jump in with me too. You mentioned a few things, James. By one, you're absolutely right. I think cutting might be the most tried or understood method, but there's a lot of things with it. Like you said, if you cut it, a lot of times my old business, CNG and LNG, we would bring in tube trucks and feed downstream, which is a lot of another whole operation. You also mentioned ESG, which is a huge topic right now. And if there's not a way to evacuate that pipe, if you cut that pipe and it's not fully evacuated, the natural gas has to go somewhere. So again, with a sleeve or composite wrap, there's no cutting, you're
Right.
repairing. It's almost like a cast on the arm where,
Right.
you know, that type. But again, we're talking not a temporary cast. We're talking huge longevity. Tommy, how long do you say for sleeves or composites they could last on that pipe?
Well, sleeves. I mean, they've been welded on sleeves there for, oh gosh, you know, lots and lots of years. And a lot of you composites they'll have a design life when they design the composite, so that could stretch out depending on a lot of factors. You know, if your liquids lines, you got a lot more cyclic. There's a lot of calculation goes in that, but you can get them years down the road. You know, all of our testing that we do for ASME PCC2 is based on such a safety factor. A lot of times you see, you know, hundreds of years of service calculated wise, but there's huge safety factors in the composite world.
Tommy, I'm a nerd, man. I kind of lit up when you were talking about the testing and kind of going through that. What'd you call it? Aggressive testing? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it is aggressive testing.
Right,
Yes.
right. I just think of all the data and stuff coming out of that and how important it is and how I can parse through it. I just kind of went off. I wasn't daydreaming. I was just kind of geeking out of what probably came out of that.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Can I was just going to add that when Tommy mentioned some of the tests some of the repairs could be rated at 100 years, a lot of times that's going to exceed the life expectancy of the pipe, maybe potentially. So the repair could last longer than the pipe does.
And, you know, it's always intrigued me early on in the pipeline world. I was always wanting to know how old the pipeline was, because it just amazed me when I first got in this industry to realize how long some of this infrastructure has been in place and overall does well.
No doubt.
You know, over the years. I mean, I've worked on pipes that were laid in the 20s, you know, 30s and 40s. So that's always intrigued me in this industry is how long our infrastructure has been around.
I always like it when I'm somewhere and somebody pulls out some of that wooden pipe or some of those pipe. You know, I'm always geek out on that too. I always think it's really interesting.
Well, if you ever get a chance to do a site visit in our facility, that's one thing that I really like. Alan Edwards has a ton of old pictures, and it just is always intrigues me to see how, you know, we look at the work that's done today on the side of mountainsides and crossing rivers and all that, and to realize that they were doing that in the 20s and 30s, you know, back then, that always intrigues me to see the advancement in technology, even just in the equipment.
No,
yeah, a lot has happened. You know, you mentioned the 20s and 30s, and again, that's roughly 90 to 100 years ago, which really isn't that long. I mean, when you look at everything, sure. But Alan Edwards has been around for, wait a minute, hold on a second, James. I think 75 years. Did you pick up something at the SGA?
Yeah,
look at that. That's right. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. Ready?
75 years.
There we go.
Boom.
Yeah. When we were with Hayden, Austin, and Matthew at SGA, I think they were handing those out. That was some good, fun little takeaways. But 75 years, you had just mentioned the facility in Tulsa having some great pictures and history. Mm-hmm. What else can you share with us over some neat things that I know you haven't been there, Tommy, because you're not a day over 29.
That's right. And holding. And holding.
What give us some other fun stories or tidbits or what we should do in regards to Alan Edwards.
Yeah, well, I always liked the history part of it, and Mr. Alan Edwards Sr. he was just an innovative guy. I mean, I've just heard story after story. Wasn't scared to dive into anything. You know, the story of the river weights. You know, he had never built a weight in his life and went back to the shop and started building farms. And we got a picture in the office that's pretty interesting. He's standing by his first completed concrete bolt-on weight that didn't crack or didn't fall apart when he took it out of the farms. So just really, really neat guy. Lots of good old stories. And one thing that's I just love is the fact that, you know, we're fourth generation. I mean, there's not very many companies, you know, that make it that long, you know, without being sold off or family selling or whatever. So
yeah, they'll kick you out of this industry if you ain't acting right. So
yeah.
I've been doing something good.
I think that's another real neat aspect of our company is fourth generation running the company today.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's and they got some good pictures of that in there with, you know, grandpas and dads and sons lined up. It's very interesting to see.
You know, James, it just hit me since you are on the board of directors for the Oklahoma Gas Association and you do a lot of stuff in Oklahoma. I could see a OGA kind of tour to the Allen Edwards facility at some point. That'd be
I know
fun.
a guy. I know a guy. I know a couple of guys. You know?
Yeah, I bet you get hooked up too.
Love it. Tommy, we close out our shows pretty similarly. So if you've ever watched one, if you haven't, we won't judge you, but you could cheat and get ahead. But we always ask people, and it doesn't have to be in a business sense. It could be a personal sense. It could be anything. But if you could leave, you got the floor, so you got the soapbox. If you could leave our audience with anything, what would you leave them with? If you could give it all away, Tommy.
Sure. I tell you what, I enjoy the pipeline industry. I've been in it, I think, if I calculated right, about 28 years this year. And I don't care what part of the country you're in, pipeliners are pipeliners. And I enjoy that. I've got a lot of friends, developed a lot of friendships over the years. So I'm sure other industries are unique and they have that same feeling. This is all I know. And I know the pipeline world is it's just been it's been good to me, and I enjoy what I do. And then it's going to be here as long as we're moving products across this nation. I think it's a safe way to do it. And I'm excited to work for Allen Edwards. When I go to work for a company, I'm pretty much all in, and they've been good to me. It's a family atmosphere, you know, and we just got a good company and a lot of good people. We're building our sales team, and that's been exciting for me. When I started with Allen Edwards, I believe the first integrity sales guy at Allen Edwards. You know, had salespeople for the buoyancy side of business. So I've got to watch a lot change in the last 8 years, and that's been very, very exciting. So I'd love to have you guys up there. I think you would. And, you know, we had a company up last week. What most people tell us is it's not just a field trip. I mean, it's pretty educational when you start from the front door of our shop till you get ready to leave. You actually learn something about what we do and how we got there.
Love it.
I do too.
Man, our industry is so big and so small. We hear it all the time.
And you know, that is, I hear that so much. You know, when I started in this industry, I was fairly young. And of course, a lot of the guys that I called on were in their 30s and 40s. So in the next 5 to probably 7 years, I've already started losing some of them. They're fishing and playing golf today.
No doubt.
But it is interesting to see how much has changed. You know, but and you're right. It's a big world, but it's a tight knit community.
Yeah, Jim and I were just having a conversation with a friend of ours, and who has an interest in our industry, and it's a hard one not to look at and think, you know, is the grass a little greener over there? Because it really is. I was an outsider 7 years ago, and I've never felt so much like home. So if you're wondering if it's real, it's very real. We didn't plan that, Tommy.
There you go. Yeah. That's right.
All right. Well, awesome. Tommy, it's been great to get to know you a little bit better. And I appreciate your time there at Allen Edwards and everything you guys are doing over there. It sounds like y'all are rocking and rolling, and I'm going to take y'all up on that tour.
Man, I want to thank y'all for the time this morning too. And I hope we get to do that, get to meet some more at some shows or hopefully come do a tour of our facility.
Oh, we will.
We
will. Tommy, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, and audience, thank you for tuning in. Until next week on Coffee with Jim and James, as I always say, stay safe. See y'all.
Thank y'all.